my main note for this was that it was too in control and too out of control at the same time. And I guess what I mean by that is like, you guys can go further. There's a lot of hesitation because you're uncertain if you should tread in that territory. And yet I am definitely a person, oftentimes I say to you guys, you're just doing that for shock value. I thought you were very sweet. I also feel like you guys are also being a little bit careful, trying to come up with great dialogue. Believe it or not, sometimes when people are trying to come up with a lot of dialogue, I tell them, stop talking. Like, don't even talk in this improv if you can help it, because you don't need to be, because what you'll find is that, I mean, listen, there are some people, and we all know one of them, who they just can't, they just like to fill the space with the sound of their voice. I mean, we know those people, but they do think that they're saying something that means something. We're busy as actors trying to say something that we hope will mean something for acting. Get off of that. Just fly by the seat of your pants a little bit more. Let the shit come out of your mouth if you're having the thoughts. We're trying to, like, basically what I like to do in this improv, one of the factors, or one of the benefits, or one of the things that you can grow from an improv is that if you let your conscious stream of thought come through, there are things that are happening when you're connecting with each other that actually run thoughts through your head that you're not even realized that they're like stray thoughts. Sometimes it's okay to say them out loud. Believe it or not, it's hard to identify whether this random weird thing you're saying is a stray thought, but I can tell the difference. When we're trying to fill the room with, like, bizarre dialogue, that's not random thoughts. That actually is a lot more work. I felt like there was nobody that was being dishonest. I felt like nobody was acting, which was good. Again, this stuff gets, there's all these different things that actors do that kind of either they shoot themselves in the foot, or it's something that when they're operating from that, it just feels like there's nowhere to go. And that might be like a weird thing. What I mean by that is, you'd be surprised how, if you were really in your complete natural state, how the improv, like, works on you. Like, you don't even have to do anything. It takes care of it for you. So Kevin, I thought this was nice. I feel like somewhere in there you could have said the theme, which is She Broke My Heart, just because that's where you were headed. The other thing is, guys, make sure that there's an image in your head of who you're talking to. Anything we're talking about, anyone we're talking about, there's an image. We don't think in words, we think in pictures. If I say my cat, I have an absolute image of her in my head. If I describe, oh my God, I went to the pool, there's a pool in my head. You know what I mean? We always think about, notice what you do anytime when you're having a natural conversation with somebody and you're bringing something up, you're bringing it up through the imagery. When you have a natural conversation with somebody, notice how when they're talking, you're seeing your own image of what they're saying, even if it's not exactly the same. That's why they always say the book is better than the movie, because when you get to conjure up your own ideas, your own images of what it is that you're hearing or seeing, you fill in your own blanks, And again, remember what we talked about, all of us, on our private sessions. In the private session, I kind of go through this thing where I get you to figure out who you are, because when you know who you are, you'll know what action you'll take that will result in emotion. Even though we're not looking, so a lot of times actors, we try to go for the emotion, we try to experience the emotion, we try to show the emotion. And I didn't think it was over the top, Kevin, and I did feel like a sincerity about it. But if you went to, like, not the task, which is, again, the most common task in acting, not the task of going, I need to be upset about this, as opposed to, I need to think about somebody who broke my heart. And for you, you're obviously in a marriage, and I'm assuming that it's working. That's a big assumption in this day and age, but if there was ever, it could be a ball, like, you could always be thinking about something. If you're talking about something that didn't work, then think about something that didn't work. So if I had to think about, if I had to talk about a job that didn't work out, I could easily talk about my boyfriend that didn't work out. And if I had to talk about my boyfriend that didn't work out, I could easily talk about a movie that I was on that didn't work out. Like, we're allowed to have the ideas swimming in our head. We see the pictures, but we don't really see exactly what the picture is. So as long as it's truthful, and whatever can rile you up, what's broken your heart, losing a pet, those things break your heart. Now, that's not funny, but improv doesn't have to be funny. The bizarre part about it is that the more dramatic you are, honestly, the funnier it ends up being. It's just a weird thing. It's a phenomenon about improv. But you guys are still a little polite in here. Do you feel what I'm talking about? you guys can let it rip. It doesn't mean fight and scream and yell and rant and rave and be over the top, because that's another part of acting that doesn't need to ever happen. There still needs to be a reason. There's certain plays I use that when I used to go see them in the theater, I knew people used to love to work on Edward Allan Baker or John Patrick Shelley because they get to curse a lot. And they'd add like a million more fucks into every line. So if the line is, I don't fucking know what you're talking about, they'd add, I don't fucking know what the fuck you're fucking talking about. And I'd be like, can you not add all the fucks? Can you actually fuel the words you have with that feeling of extra fucks? So it's, I don't know what the fuck you are talking about. Fuel the words. And that's what they talk about in Meisner when they say the words don't matter. They don't matter until you make them matter. They don't mean anything until you make them mean something. You know, it was an interesting relationship with him, and you had a lot of history you created. But I would still say, drop into it a little bit more. Be more intimate. Don't be afraid to, you know, listen, here's what it boils down to. When you go into an audition and you're reading with a casting director, and they may not give it to you, but they want to get it back. Your job is to affect people. Your job is to affect somebody and make yourself essential to the scene. So intimacy is very important, and you can't be afraid of it. You can't be afraid of it. And the craziest thing is I could work with some actors. I've worked with actors for years, and then all of a sudden, like, I have them alone in a room and we're doing something in the name of an audition, and all of a sudden I'm like, where did you go? So they feel like they have to sit on their hands and be a whole other thing. Who feels like when they go to auditions, if you go to auditions, that you feel like everything changes, like you don't know what to do with your fucking arms, everything changes? Anybody have that experience? Yeah, it's like this weird thing that happens. I don't know what to do with my hands. Would you not know what to do with your hands now? Does anybody not know what to do with your hands right now? I'm going to do this. I feel like doing this. You know, right about now, I'm going to pick up my cup of water and I'm going to drink it. It has a little urine in it. No, I'm just kidding. So, you know, the point is to keep it as real as possible. So I want to kind of nip it in the butt. For you guys that are here right now, I don't know what your commitment is long term. I know that everybody that's been in Saturday has been in Saturday since the beginning, and most of them came out of the live class. Acting is an ongoing, you know, it's an ongoing thing. It's like working out. You don't go to the gym, work out, and go, I have muscles now. I'm done. You want to do this, you know, on a regular basis. You're not doing it for work. And then eventually you'll be doing it for work. So the goal is that you guys let yourselves drop into your realities here. So when you go to an audition, you don't have a choice, like, and they don't have a choice but to experience the real you in whatever character you're playing. Does that make sense? So I just want you guys to know that, like, you have permission to be completely logical, and you also have permission to be silent. Kind of just look at each other and try to figure out what to say next, instead of having it all, like, do we live our life knowing 100% of the time what we're going to say next? We don't. You want to know something? Somebody said to me a really long time ago, how do you prepare for each class? And I'm like, aside from the fact that I get people scenes and I have to have sides and I think about a lot of things, I can't prepare for the class because I don't know what you're going to do. You know, imagine if I had a plan and you guys did what you did and I went, you're supposed to look to the left and to the right because when Tiffany said, there's no Tiffany and there's no left and right. Like, how can I prepare? I got to wait to see what you guys do. I'm improvising too. Don't be afraid to, like, try to turn it into some logic to make it make sense. Here's the deal. You are the only one who can make it make sense. A long time ago, I had a girl and they were on an airplane and there was like this improv going on and the girl came up the aisle and I said, but you didn't really know where to look. She goes, well, I didn't really know where the cockpit was. Well, where is your normal cockpit? And where would it be if you decided it was there? It would therefore be in front of you up the aisle. You know, you have to decide. This is what I was talking to you last week, Asia, about your eye lines. If you don't commit to it, we don't believe it. It's like you can't go back and fix it. What happens is all these things, these mistakes that you guys make, or these, like, you know, these nervous tics that you have, or these, like, needs to fill in this, you know, fill in everything, it goes away. It just starts to go away. And you also, you relax a little bit into it and you're listening better. And it's easier to inject yourself into the story. But let me tell you this, though. Doesn't matter how long you've been doing it. There's still days where my jackrats who've been doing this for 10 years, at least, half of them. I mean, Mickey's been in my studio. He teaches my teen class. He teaches the improv. He'll fuck it up every now and then. You know, it just happens. It's improv. But don't be afraid that if somebody says something to you, I call it stop being so polite in improv. So there are rules in other improvs that say don't deny and yet create conflict. Don't deny but create conflict. Isn't not denying avoiding conflict? And isn't denying creating conflict. I mean, it doesn't make sense. Don't deny, but create conflict. So the truth is, a lot of these rules in improv came out of people doing it, and then they tried to create a formula for it. It doesn't require a formula, because I never learned any, I never went to an improv class in my life. And I just started teaching this improv. And as it got going, I saw more and more things that made sense to me. And as it got going and more and more things made sense to me, then people would come in and they'd be like, oh my God, that's game of three. So think in terms of understanding these things just happen naturally when you're really in your body and you're letting it happen. And don't be afraid to conflict with each other. And I don't mean conflict the improv. You can't say, you're not my mother. That's a denial that makes no sense. If you do want to deny it, you have to find a believable way to do it. You know what I mean? Like, you dreamed that up in your own head. You think that's what happened. I woke you up. You were having a wet dream. I mean, I don't care what you do to make this work so that it's believable to the people watching. Even if the story is unbelievable. How much shit do we see that's unbelievable? And you know what? Art imitates life. It's so funny and so crazy. But how the show started was with a bunch of people in the class that were doing so many unique characters that it was unstoppable. And two of them specifically played men. And I don't mean they played girls acting like boys. They played women. I don't mean they were boys acting like girls, like, you know, in drag. They were women. And may I say, these two guys were tall, big, buff, black guys. And they played women. And not only did they play women, they played church ladies. And they wore bonnets and dresses and shoes. And they went and they got the whole wardrobe. You can actually find their footage on YouTube. They're listed under The Real MMJ, which is Mickey, Michael, and Jeremy. And their character, they did a whole series with these women that are the church ladies. And no one has ever accused them of being in drag. It was like, why are the men playing women? Because they can. Create these conjure up ideas, and you guys can start putting them together. And if you have already had ideas and you even have other people that you're doing them with, there's no reason why you can't bring them in here and play your hand at them to see if you can accomplish it. And again, I always make this comment. It's a little different than this point, but I always say, you know, Leonardo DiCaprio, when he went in for his audition to play What's Eating Gilbert Grape, he didn't just show up one day and was able to play that very, very severely mentally handicapped character. He had to have been working on that in some way, shape, or form. Anybody see that movie? It was unbelievable. He was amazing. Try these things. Everybody has different things they want to play, you know, and like I always say, I dirty up my clean girls, clean up my dirty girls, and I try to create something for you guys so that you can master those little people that live inside of you. So good job. I just don't be like, take more risks. That doesn't mean get bigger, louder, or crazier. And it doesn't mean your choices have to be even more bold. It just means like, be more intimate, be more connected. Trust that if your emotions are left on the floor when you're done, you're safe. You're safe.